Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says war on Gaza will continue for many more months. Kremlin vows to all those responsible for the attack on Belgorod will be punished. An estimated 100,000 Palestinians recently fled Israeli bombardments on central Gaza and fled to the southern border town of Rafah. They add to an overcrowded, displaced population whom rely almost entirely on humanitarian assistance, said a UN official. Israel says it will continue its air and ground offensive until Hamas is dismantled.
השגת הניצחון דורשת עוד זמן. כפי שאמר השבוע הרמטכ"ל, המלחמה תימשך עוד חודשים רבים. המדיניות שלי ברורה. אנחנו ממשיכים להילחם עד השלמת כל יעדי המלחמה, ובראשם חיסול החמאס ושחרור כל חטופינו.
Thousands of Israelis gathered on Saturday in Tel Aviv to protest against the government's handling of the ongoing war in Gaza and call for fresh elections. Demonstrators attacked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's hardline government and demanded action to bring the rest of the hostages back home. Shelling in the Russian border city of Belgorod killed 24 people and wounded 108 more on Saturday, according to the regional governor. Russian officials accused Kyiv of carrying out the assault, which came 18 hours after Russian strikes on Ukraine. Russia called for an emergency UN Security Council meeting following the attacks.
Все организаторы и исполнители этого и других преступлений киевской хунты понесут неотвратимые наказания. Призываем все ответственные правительства и профильные международные структуры выступить с решительным осуждением этого жестокого теракта, совершенного с использованием запрещенных в большинстве западных государств кассетных боеприпасов.
In Ukraine, Russian forces shelled Kharkiv on Saturday, striking the central part of the city, injuring at least 21 people. Military officials added the Russian strike damaged civilian infrastructure, including medical facilities, apartment buildings, shops and other public spaces and transport. Serbian officials have decided to hold a partial rerun of the election following protests over alleged fraud. The rerun affects only a small portion of the Serbian electorate, with voters returning to cast ballots at 30 polling stations out of more than 8,000. The movement Serbia Against Violence has called for a boycott of the rerun. Students started a 24-hour blockade outside government buildings in Belgrade on Friday. Thousands took to the street in Belgrade on Saturday, accusing the populist authorities of Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić of orchestrating a fraud during the recent general election. The protests capped nearly 2 weeks of rallies against reported widespread irregularities during the December 17th ballot. At least 14 Eurostar services have been cancelled on Saturday from London St Pancras due to flooding in a nearby tunnel. Passengers were left stranded on the Eurostar concourse in Paris as services between London and Edsfleet were flooded. Only one train will be running in both directions on one of the busiest weekends of the year.
What can you do? You can't really do anything, so it's the only other option would be to drive 2.5 hours and get on a ferry or fly. I don't know.
In northern and central parts of Germany, floods have prompted evacuations of dozens of hundreds of people. In Meppen, where the River Hayes and the River Ems meet, emergency workers are working day and night, pumping away water and reinforcing dikes.
Also ich denke, das war nicht das letzte Hochwasser und da wird bestimmt noch öfter mal Hochwasser kommen und von daher denke ich schon für die Anwohner hier in Esterfeld mit Sicherheit.